beyond the spotlight. That evening, after hours of forced smiles and carefully measured words, Lucas felt drained. However, there was a small satisfaction. He hadn't strangled Ryuu, and they'd presented a united front. That was progress, right? He stayed behind for some extra sprint practice on the pitch. The stadium had mostly cleared out, lights dimming to a gentler glow. The hush enveloped Lucas as he broke into a run, body humming with exertion. After a particularly intense sprint, he bent over, hands on knees, catching his breath. Footsteps approached. Looking up, he spotted Ryuu strolling across the field, soccer ball in hand. Lucas frowned. "Didn't think you'd still be here." Ryuu shrugged, dribbling the ball idly. "Could say the same for you." They stood there in silence under the near-empty stands. Finally, Ryuu kicked the ball gently toward Lucas, who trapped it under his cleat with ease. Ryuu started, then cleared his throat. "I know you don't trust me on the field. You think I'm reckless." Lucas straightened. "Maybe I do, but I guess I see potential." Ryuu's lips quirked. "That's almost a compliment coming from you." Lucas exhaled, rolling the ball back to Ryuu. "Look, I've always played with a certain style. Direct, disciplined. I don't like surprises. You thrive on unpredictability." A corner of Ryuu's mouth twitched. "That's how I learned. Street soccer, freestyle. But I'm not just doing it for flair. Sometimes creativity is the best approach." Lucas paused, noticing the sincerity in Ryuu's tone. "We want the same thing. To score, to win. Maybe we can find some common ground." As if testing a fragile truce, they started passing the ball back and forth. Soft touches, no fancy moves, just a quiet exchange. The stadium lights glowed around them. For the first time, the enmity between them loosened its grip. A moment of understanding. In the days that followed, glimpses of cooperation sprouted. They still snapped at each other, but it was less venomous than before. During a scrimmage, when Ryuu found himself cornered by defenders, Lucas positioned himself for a quick 1-2 pass. Ryuu spotted him out of the corner of his eye and flicked the ball, a low, crisp pass that cut through the defender's legs. Lucas hammered it into the net with a single strike. Cheers erupted. Instead of the usual glare, Ryuu flashed a triumphant grin. Lucas nodded, offering a terse, "Nice pass." A small step, but an important one. The unexpected injury. As if fate couldn't let them dwell in progress for too long, the next match day arrived. This time, they were facing an old rival of Metro United, River East FC. The tension in the locker room thrummed with electricity. Lucas taped his wrists methodically, his focus razor-sharp. Ryuu next to him laced his boots, brushing his spiky hair aside with confidence. Kickoff. Lucas felt the heartbeat of the crowd in his chest. The match was fierce, with rough tackles from both sides. River East had a reputation for aggressive play, often towing the line of what referees would let slide. Midway through the first half, Lucas found himself surging forward, about to latch onto a through ball from Ryuu. A River East defender lunged in late, studs up. Lucas felt a searing pain explode in his ankle as he crashed to the turf. The whistle shrieked, the stadium erupted in howls. Lucas lay on the ground, gritting his teeth, adrenaline roaring in his ears. Ryuu was the first by his side, dropping to a crouch. "Lucas," he hissed, eyes darting over him. The panic in Ryuu's face betrayed the developing bond between them, fear that the injury might be severe. Medics rushed in. Lucas tried to stand but wobbled, agony lancing up his leg. The stretcher came out. As they carried him off the pitch, Lucas locked eyes with Ryuu, whose expression was a torrent of concern. Lucas had never seen that softness before. At the sideline, the team doctor pressed on Lucas's ankle, frowning. "We'll need an immediate scan." Lucas's stomach twisted. He'd been lucky in his career. No major injuries. This blow threatened everything. As they took him through the stadium tunnel, Lucas fought off a wave of dread. Hospital check and grim news. That night, after the match concluded in a disappointing draw, Lucas found himself in a quiet hospital wing, foot propped up. A series of X-rays and MRIs were done, culminating in a grim conversation with the orthopedic specialist. Soft tissue damage, the doctor explained, pointing at scans. Ankle sprain, possibly ligament strain. You're looking at a few weeks out minimum. Could be longer if it's more severe than we suspect. Lucas's heart sank. Every athlete's nightmare was being sidelined, forced to watch from the sidelines while your place on the team either vanished or was filled by someone else. Sometime past midnight, a knock on the door made Lucas blink from his thoughts. Expecting a nurse, he was surprised to see Ryuu peering inside, still in partial uniform, though he'd thrown on a hoodie. "Hey," Ryuu greeted quietly, stepping into the sterile, fluorescent-lit room. Lucas tensed. "Why are you here?" Ryuu's expression was uncharacteristically somber. "I wanted to check on you. The rest of the team headed home, but I couldn't leave without knowing how bad it was." He glanced at Lucas's bandaged ankle, his jaw setting in a tight line. For a moment, neither spoke. The frustration and vulnerability in Lucas's eyes warred with the concern in Ryuu's. "Doc says I'll be out for a bit," Lucas finally muttered, voice tinged with bitterness. "Damn it, we had the league opener soon." Ryuu approached the bed, uncertain, then halted at a respectful distance. "That was a dirty tackle. You had no chance to avoid it." "It's part of the game," Lucas exhaled, scrubbing a hand across his face. "Doesn't make it easier to swallow." The hush between them felt charged. Ryuu fidgeted. I'm sorry this happened to you. Really." Lucas's gaze flicked up, locking with Ryuu's. There was an echo of sincerity that shook him. For someone he'd treated as a rival from day one, Ryuu seemed genuinely affected. "It's not your fault," Lucas mumbled at last. He swallowed the bitterness clawing at his throat. "I'll bounce back." An emotion Lucas couldn't quite name crossed Ryuu's face. Relief, empathy, something else. "If there's anything I can do?" Lucas nodded, reluctant gratitude tugging at the corners of his mouth. The tension of rivalry still crackled, but in that moment, overshadowed by the gravity of the situation, Lucas realized how much Ryuu's presence calmed him. The slow burn of reluctant dependence. 2 days later, Lucas was discharged with crutches, his ankle in a brace. Strict instructions for rest, physical therapy, and absolutely no intense training for at least 2 weeks, possibly more. For a man whose life revolved around soccer, it was an excruciating sentence. He returned to his apartment, a sleek, modern space in the city center. The large windows overlooked a river, and the walls were adorned with framed jerseys and awards from Lucas's career. But all that glory felt hollow as he hobbled around, fumbling for a water glass. The door buzzed. He opened it to find Ryuu standing there, awkwardly clutching a small bag. Lucas cocked his head. "You again?" Ryuu lifted the bag. "I brought some food and, well, I thought you might need a hand." Lucas hesitated. Pride told him to chase Ryuu away. But his ankle throbbed, and he was finding daily tasks surprisingly difficult. Clearing his throat, he stepped aside. "Fine," he muttered. "Come in." Ryuu entered, glancing around at the immaculate living area. Everything was neat. Lucas's personality manifested in his environment. Ryuu set the bag on the kitchen counter, pulling out containers of steaming rice and chicken, along with some homemade miso soup. Lucas's brow arched, curiosity peaked. "You cook?" Ryuu offered a half-smile. "Yeah, I had to learn early on. My parents worked a lot, so I fended for myself. Figure this might be better than delivery every day." A pang of something akin to gratitude bloomed in Lucas's chest. "Thanks. he said quietly. They settled in the living room. Lucas propped his injured leg on a cushion. Ryuu handed him the meal, occasionally stealing glances at him. Conversation was stilted at first, each feeling out the other's mood. "Must be tough," Ryuu said. "Being sidelined." Lucas let out a mirthless chuckle. "Like the world's worst punishment." He paused, then mustered civility. "How's training going?" Ryuu shifted. "I'm starting this weekend. They want me to lead the offense, but it feels weird without you." Lucas's eyes flicked up, mild surprise coloring his expression. "Weird how?" Ryuu kept his gaze down, swirling soup with his spoon. "It's not the same dynamic. I mean, we argued a lot, but in that last match before the injury, I felt we were finally beginning to sync." Lucas swallowed, emotions conflicting. "So you think we can actually play together?" "Yeah," Ryuu admitted, a hint of a smile ghosting his lips. "I do." They lapsed into silence, the air thick with tension of a different kind. Less hostility, more unspoken awareness. The glare of rivalry had softened into cautious camaraderie, forced to rely on each other. As the days rolled by, the club's doctor insisted Lucas remain mostly at home, resting and performing gentle exercises. The physical therapist dropped by thrice a week. Despite his initial pride-driven reluctance, Lucas found he needed help with errands, picking up groceries, dropping off forms at the training facility, or just dealing with the loneliness of forced inactivity. Ryuu seemed to appear whenever Lucas needed it most, even if neither of them explicitly acknowledged it. After morning practice, Ryuu would swing by with updates on the team and drop off fresh fruit or dinner. One evening, Lucas tried to do laundry on his own, only to lose balance and nearly topple over. Ryuu caught him just in time, arms wrapping around Lucas's waist. "Watch it!" Ryuu gasped, pulling him upright. Lucas's heart thundered. The feel of Ryuu's slender but strong arms around him was unsettling, an intimate jolt that had nothing to do with rivalry. He stiffened, brushing off Ryuu's hold as soon as he was stable. "I'm fine," he bit out, refusing to meet Ryuu's eyes. Ryuu looked equally flustered, quickly stepping back. Sorry." The moment lingered in the air, charged and heavy. Lucas realized with dismay that his animosity toward Ryuu was morphing into something else, something that left him breathless, watching. From the sidelines. The weekend arrived, the first official league match for Metro United. Lucas sat in his apartment, foot elevated, frustration tearing at him. He had half a mind to hobble to the stadium, but the physical therapist had strictly forbidden excessive walking, so he turned on the TV, forced to watch the broadcast like any average spectator. He recognized every voice of the commentators, the angles of the camera gliding over the pitch. The lineup showed Ryuu Nakamura starting as center forward. There was a flutter of something in Lucas's chest. The match began. The opposing team was strong, but Ryuu's flair was undeniable. Several times he left defenders in the dust, but either the finish lacked or the final pass didn't align well. Lucas found himself muttering instructions to the screen. "Pass it sooner, or cut inside, now." He realized he cared more than he'd admit about Ryuu's performance. Late in the second half, with the score tied at 1-1, Ryuu found a moment of brilliance. He slipped between two defenders and unleashed a wicked shot into the corner of the net. A gorgeous goal. The stadium erupted, commentators shouting his name. Ryuu dashed to the corner flag, sliding on his knees in celebration, face alight with triumph. At home, Lucas's heart pounded. He felt a complicated mix of pride, envy, admiration, and that strange, heated rush. He did it, Lucas thought, lips curving into a small smile. Post-match interviews flashed on screen. Ryuu, sweaty hair plastered to his forehead, dedicated the goal to the team. "Lucas, too," he added. "I know he's watching. I hope he gets better soon." Lucas inhaled sharply, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. Something in Ryuu's voice had been genuine, almost tender. It left him restless for the rest of the night. A private visit. The next day, Ryuu came over with a triumphant air, but also concern, asking how Lucas felt. Lucas, perched on the couch, turned off the sports channel. "That was some goal," Lucas said, trying to mask the faint trace of pride in his tone. "Congratulations on the win." Ryuu ducked his head, a flicker of shyness crossing his face. "Thanks, but I don't know. It felt off not having you out there." Lucas's breath caught. "Come on, you did great. You don't need me." Ryuu's eyes flicked up, resolute. "We need each other. Or at least, we can bring out the best in each other." The words hovered in the air, potent. Lucas swallowed. He tried to shift the subject. "How's the rest of the squad? They must be celebrating." "They are. Some are worried, though. A few tough matches are coming up, and we need more than flashy plays." Lucas nodded. "Well, I'm stuck in therapy for a while." Ryuu opened his mouth to speak, then paused, seeming to weigh his words. "Let me help. Even if it's just, I don't know. We can watch match footage together, talk tactics. It might help me, might help you." A flicker of an unexpected emotion tugged at Lucas's heart. He realized that for the first time in years, someone was reaching out, not out of duty or professional courtesy, but out of a genuine desire to connect. The late-night analysis. So it began. Nights where Ryuu would come over after training, laptop in tow, to watch game replays. They'd analyze Ryuu's movements, figure out how Lucas's presence could have changed certain plays. The big TV in Lucas's living room became a strategy board of sorts. One evening, around midnight, they were still dissecting the second half of a rivals match. Lucas sat on the couch, leg resting on a stack of pillows, while Ryuu sprawled on the floor with a notepad. "You see here," Lucas said, pointing at the screen, "when the defensive line shifts, if you had me on the right side, I'd create space so you could cut in and shoot. The key is timing." Ryuu tapped his pen. "Right, maybe a quick interchange. Or if you draw defenders away, I can use my speed." "Exactly. Or if you're marked, that's when I slip into the box." They locked eyes, a surge of excitement passing between them, the love for the game, the thrill of strategy. Gradually, the conversation mellowed, the match footage paused on a random freeze frame. Ryuu, leaning back, looked up at Lucas. "You're really passionate," he murmured. "I can see why you're so intense. You love soccer." Lucas offered a quiet smile. "It's all I've ever known. My father, well, he pushed me hard. Not always in a healthy way, but it shaped me." Ryuu nodded as if he understood a deeper truth in that statement. He glanced away, expression turning pensive. "I left Japan to chase this dream. My family was supportive, but it was scary, stepping into a new country, new culture. Sometimes I'm not even sure if I fit in here." Lucas's gaze softened. He remembered how he'd been borderline hostile to the newcomer from the start. Now, guilt simmered in him. "You do. I mean, you belong on that field, no question." Their eyes met again, tension coiling in the air. Lucas felt heat crawl up his neck, the closeness suddenly making him hyper-aware of everything about Ryuu. His intense brown eyes, the faint scar by his eyebrow, the slight parting of his lips as he breathed. The realization that he found it captivating rattled Lucas to his core. He cleared his throat. You should probably get some sleep. It's late." Ryuu lingered, as if words still caught in his throat. Then he gathered his laptop, nodded, and moved toward the door. "Lucas," he said softly, glancing over his shoulder. "Thanks for letting me in." Lucas nodded, lost for a reply. When the door shut, an ache pulsed in his chest, an unfamiliar longing,